class. Today we'll be looking at Chapter 9, which discusses the center of gravity and centroids. Looking at section 9.1, this section talks about center of gravity, center of mass, and the centroid of a body. Let's imagine a SUV, right? And we're imagining that while we're driving it, we take a sharp turn in the SUV. As a manufacturer, one thing you want to think about is where is the center of mass for this SUV? Should the center of mass be higher or lower in the SUV to keep it stable for hard turns? If you put it in the wrong location, it will make it more likely for it to be tipping over during sharp turns. Question is, how do we determine this location for the SUV center of mass? Let's also imagine a goalpost. Trying to determine where is the center of mass for the goalpost, or where is the center of gravity for the goalpost. Through integration, we can determine the total weight of the goalpost due to this curvature and its supporting members. Once again, we want to determine where is the overall center of gravity for this to keep it from falling over. A body is composed of an infinite number of particles, and so if the body is located within a gravity field, then each of these particles will have a weight dW. So the center of gravity is a point often shown as just G, which locates the resultant weight of the system of particles or solid body. So we're imagining that this body could be any object, whether it's the SUV or a goalpost, and we're imagining that each of the individual particles that are in this object have their own center of gravity or their own weight that's acting on it. By adding it all together, we can find the center of gravity for an object. The location of center of gravity is measured from the y-axis and is determined by equating the moment of W about the y-axis to the sum of the moments of the weights of the particles about the same axis. If the change in W is located at an arbitrary point x, y, z, then we can use the following equation where we have straight bar x, y, z are coordinates of the center of gravity, and curly x, y, z are the coordinates for an arbitrary particle in this body. By replacing the w with an m in these equations, the coordinates of the center of mass can be found. If the change in mass is located at a point xyz, we have the same formula as before, but this time we're replacing weight with mass. Similarly, the coordinates of a centroid of a volume, area, or length can be found by doing the same thing by replacing m with v, a, or l, respectively. Taking a closer look at what it looks like for a line. For a line segment, we can use the letter L to find the centroid of a line. If the change in L is located at a point xyz, we have the same equation as before except using L. But in this case, the length for dl can be given by the Pythagorean theorem, where we have dl equals the square root of change in x squared plus the change in y squared. This can also be written as the equation below. The centroid C is a point defining the geometric center of an object. The centroid coincides with the center of mass or the center of gravity only if the material of the body is homogeneous, meaning that all of the material has the same density and it's the same throughout. If any object has an axis of symmetry, then the centroid of the object will lie on that axis of symmetry. In some cases, we might find that the centroid may be actually located outside of the object. So some steps to determine the centroid of an area. We first choose an appropriate differential element. It could be differentials of A, L, M, whatever it is that we're looking for, at a general point x, y. A good hint is generally if and in terms of y, like an equation, we get y equals x squared plus 1, then we will express it in terms of y. We'll use y and express it in terms of x, actually, and use a vertical rectangular element. If it's in terms of opposite way, instead of using a vertical rectangular element, we'll use a horizontal rectangular element. We then express the differential element in terms of dx or dy. And then after that, we determine the coordinates, the arbitrary x or y of the centroid of the rectangular element, and then we put it in terms of a general point x, y. Lastly, we express all the variables in integral limits in formula using either x or y, depending on whether the differential element is in terms of dx or dy, respectively, and then we integrate. Right now, these steps might not seem clear, but this will be cleared up in our first example. So let's take a look at our first example. It asks us to locate the centroid of the area shown below. And here we're given that y equals x squared represents this area. And then we have a distance of 1 in the x and y direction. Here we have the differential element with a thickness of dx and a height of y. We see that we're using a vertical rectangular element here. The area in the moment's arm, which the area we're using here is dA, equals y times dx, which makes sense, right? This rectangle has a height of y, then it has a width of dx, so the area for this would be y times dx, right? And it's showing that if you're looking at this image specifically, we're going to have a length of just x for the arbitrary point x, and we'll have a length of y over 2 for that y element, right? And then when we complete our integrations, we have that this is what we have for x. You use integration for the arbitrary x on top divided by the integration for the area on the bottom. You end up getting the answer is 0.75 meters. And then in terms of y, similarly, you just switch it out for y. You get 0.3 meters. So this is what it would look like for solution 1. This is an example if we just use a vertical area. We can switch this out with a horizontal rectangle. We'll see in the next solution the same exact example. And I suggest that you pause this video and make sure that you're understanding what is happening here in the solution 1. For solution 2, we have this differential element. This time we have it horizontally facing for this rectangle. It has a thickness of dy, and this time it has a length of 1 minus x, which makes sense, right? Because we're starting from the end 1 and you subtracting x to represent the whole width of this rectangular element. And then when we look at the arbitrary x and y's, you have for the arbitrary x, you have 1 plus x over 2, and then for arbitrary y, it's just y, right? And we see this is how we're representing the dA here, or the area, where we have dA equals 1 minus x times dy, which makes sense. You're just multiplying dy times that width that we have. Now when we try to complete our integrations, we find that the centroid, or the center of this triangle, or this area right here, is 0.75, similar to what we just saw before. And then we also find that the y is 0.3. So we see that even if we use a vertical rectangle versus a horizontal one, we end up with the same answer here. Look at our second example. This time we're looking at a rod. So this question asks us to locate the centroid of the rod bent into a shape of a parabolic arc. So the differential element here is dl. We're looking at length here. And we'll put it in terms of dx dy, right? So we have that triangle-like shape there. And when we look for the area, we'll use Pythagorean theorem, where we have dl equals the following equation. And since we know that x equals y squared, then we have dx over dy equals 2y. So we end up having that dl equals the square root of 2y squared plus 1 dy, where our arbitrary x equals x and our arbitrary y equals y. When we complete the integration here, we take that integration of x and then divide that by the length, and we end up getting 0.41 meters. Similarly, doing the same thing for the y, right? We find that the centroid for this problem for y is 0.574 meters. I suggest you pause this video to try to see if you follow along with this. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Now taking a look at section 9.2. This section talks about composite bodies. So many industrial objects can be considered composite bodies, which are objects that are made of a series of connected simple shaped parts like rectangles, triangles, or semicircles, or holes. Knowing the location of a centroid or center of gravity for these simple shaped parts, we can easily determine the location of C or CG for the more complex composite body. And here we're going to, as we see in the images above, we're going to be sectioning off different areas into A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, depending on how many different areas we have. But basically what's happening here is we're going to break up the objects into smaller pieces. That makes it easier for us to solve for whatever centroid we're looking for. So we can consider each part as a particle. This is simple but an effective practice for determining the location of a centroid or center of gravity for complex parts. The net result for weight, as we're seeing on the right image, is the resultant weight is the sum of the weights for the simple particles, right? We can find the value of the finite number of weights using the following equation. This kind of looks similar to the equation we saw before, but this time instead of integration, we're using summation. We're just adding up all the weights, or in this case, this is the x, y, or z times the weight, which if you recognize this is distance times force, which is kind of the same as a moment here, where we have the straight bar x, y, z is the coordinate for the center of gravity. The curly bar for x, y, and z, the coordinates for the center of gravity of each composite part of the body. And then the summation of W is the sum of the weights of all the composite parts of the body, or simply the total weight of the body. Taking a look at our steps for analysis, the first step is to divide the body into pieces that are known shapes. And one thing that's important to note is that holes are considered as pieces with a negative weight or negative size. This will make sense when we take a look at problems that are coming up. Second thing to do is make a table with the first column for the segment number, second column for weight, mass, or size depending on the problem. Then next thing is a set of columns for the moment arms, and finally several columns for recording the results of simple intermediate calculations. Third thing to do is fix the coordinate axes, determine the coordinates of the center of gravity, the centroid of each piece, and then fill in the table. Lastly, we sum the columns to get our centroid x, y, and z, and use formulas like the formula at the bottom of this slide. Let's take a look at our first example. For this section, example 3, we'll locate the centroid of a wire, which is this wire shown here. So first thing we're going to do is break this up into its composite parts. We see that we have that little semicircle where we're labeling 1. Then we have that part of the wire, that rod we're labeling 2. The other part that's labeled 3. If you notice, each of the parts are breaking it up into their individual centroids or their centers, right? So we see that, for example, 3 are pointing out that since it's that the length of that is 20 millimeters, the midpoint is 10 millimeters, right? For 2, the midpoint is 20 milliliters, and then for 1, doing a little bit of geometry, we find that the midpoint here is 38.2 millimeters. Here is what a table like for this would look like. You see each of the segments listed out 1, 2, 3. We have the length of each segment listed out, right? So we have 60 times pi for the semicircle, 40 for segment 2, and then 20 for segment 3, right? And that's just the total length that we have there. And then we're looking at the x, y, z for each of these, the lengths in terms of that, right? So segment 1, we have the 60, right? So from the origin to the centroid, right? For the y part of 1, we have that distance is the 38.2. We have it as negative because that's going in the negative y direction, and then there's 0 for z because there's no change in the z direction. Then for segment 2, 0 for x, 0 for z because it's only going along the y-axis. So we have that centroid 20, and then similarly for the segment 3. After that, we multiply our centroids for the arbitrary x with the L, same for y, z, put that all together, and then you finally sum it up at the end. I suggest that you pause this and try to make sure that you're following what's happening in this table. Once you have it filled out in this way, it becomes pretty simple to solve out. All that happens next is you take your summation for the x, y, z, divided by the total sum for the length, and then you get your final answer, which is here we find that the centroid for this entire object is 45.5 millimeters in the x direction, 22.5 millimeters in the negative y direction, and 0.805 millimeters in the negative z direction. Let's take a look at our last example. So example 4 asks us to locate the centroid of a plate with the area shown below. Here we have composite parts where, if you notice here, we have a 1, 2, and then 3. Where basically what we're going to do is we're going to take that simple shape for 1 and 2, and then find that simple shape for 3, and we're going to subtract 3 from 1 and 2 to get that original area that we were given. This is what the table would look like for this. Pretty similar to the other one. The same set of length we're using area, right? So you find the area of segment 1, segment 2, and then segment 3, right? You notice that 1 and 2 are positive, and then 3 is negative, because as we saw from the original image, that area was not there, so you're going to subtract that from this. And then like before, you'll just take the sum of the x times a divided by the summation of a to get what the centroid is for x, and then the same thing for y. So we get that our final answer is the centroid for this image here is negative 0.348 feet in the x direction, and then 1.22 feet in the y direction. If there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, but hopefully this lecture was useful.